want to thank everyone for coming today to the 2016 Arden Hills State of the City, hosted by the City of Arden Hills and its Economic Development Committee. I'm David Grant, Mayor of Arden Hills. Today we'll have 3 speakers. Please hold your questions until after each presentation. If you have questions, please come to the mic so that we can record your questions. This is a different format from previous State of the Cities to have three presenters. In the past, we've had council members present topics. So we hope you find this format informative and useful. The first presenter today is Bob Lux of Alatus. He's the master developer for the Rice Creek Commons TCAP development, the 427-acre parcel, which was former Army property. Bob, along with his partners, and I'll let him talk about each of his partners, were chosen by the Joint Development Authority to be the developer for Rice Creek Commons. So, Bob, welcome.
Good morning, everybody. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm excited to present to you kind of just the overview on our plans for the former TCAP site, which is now currently called Rice Creek Commons. That name will probably change over the next 6 months as we finalize the plan and to develop it completely and get the City of Arden Hills approval as well as the JDA approval. The JDA is the Joint Development Authority that was created to develop the site or to control the development of the site between the city and the county. And maybe just 2 minutes of background on myself. I've been in the development business in Minneapolis for almost 30 years, since the mid-1980s, I guess. I went to college right down the street, not at Bethel, but at Hamlin. And so I'm very familiar with this area. I actually have to tell you, I never bowled up here, so this was not one of my hangouts. As one of the guys that walked in with me this morning said, now, was this one of your old haunts back in the 70s? And I said, no, this was not one of my haunts, so I don't have any good or bad memories of this location. But Lindy's was one of my favorite steakhouses, so I am familiar. Site, back to where, so Alatus we're a small, I wouldn't call us a boutique firm because we do larger scale projects. We do typically 1 to 2 large projects a year. We're a team of 16 professionals that deal primarily with residential and large scale developments like this. We just completed a 320-unit, 13-story building in downtown Minneapolis. We were involved with the redevelopment of Mayo Clinic Square, which is the former Block E, into what is now a 97% fully occupied, kind of an award-winning facility in downtown Minneapolis. Previously, I'd also was involved with doing Grant Park, which was a 27-story condo building in downtown, and the Carlisle. So I'm used to doing, or our firm is used to doing, larger scale developments. On this one, we teamed up with 2 exceptional groups, and I really do want to highlight how exceptional they are. The first one is Robert Thomas Homes, and Robert Thomas Homes is kind of an offshoot of a land development company based in Apple Valley and Lakeville called the Ennebeck Company. They have done hundreds of golf courses around the country. They are a home developer of semi-custom and custom homes, which was really important to the JDA and I believe important to the City of Arden Hills to get a very high quality kind of non-production housing developer as part of our team. So we're excited to have the Tradition Homes as part of it. The other group is led by Tom Shaver, who's also in the back of the room, and Kent Carlson. Tom and Kent have been in the, as long as I've been in the residential side of the world, in the development world, Tom and Kent have been in the commercial side doing larger scale office development. Tom's most recent development was with Opus Corporation, where he did approximately 1 million square feet for Cargill over in the old SuperValue site in Hopkins, right off of 169. But they know the marketplace, they know the brokers in town, and our goal is to bring vitality, livability, and excellence to this site. So maybe to give just a little background, and many of you are from Arden Hills, I'm sure, so you know this. It's a huge site. It's 427 acres. It's part of a multi-thousand acre site that the Army purchased back in the 40s to do munitions manufacturing. And what's interesting about it is the munitions manufacturing and the history of this site will actually get woven into our development in some way, shape, or form, either as a museum or as some sort of touch point. It's an incredibly important piece of our history, of your community's history, because during the war, there was over 20-some thousand people that were employed on this site, primarily women. And, the men went off to war. The women did a lot of the manufacturing work that was being done to supply our troops. And that element of this site is not lost on us, and we're going to find a way to celebrate it along with the cooperation of the city and the JDA. It's a very important piece of it. If we go to the next slide. So what has developed here is a very unique relationship between the city of Arden Hills and Ramsey County. When the Vikings, and I don't know if this is exactly right, but I'll try to, in my words, describe what happened. When the Vikings first started looking at this site, they kind of forced the issue upon both the city and the county and the state, really, as to what to do with this site. And when the Vikings proposal did not move forward, what was created, though, was a relationship between the county and the city and the state in that this site should get redeveloped. There was an agency or a committee that was created, which was called the JDA, the Joint Development Authority, which is a joint group with representatives of Ramsey County and representatives of the city of Arden Hills, and then an at-large community representative, actually, that is chairman of that committee. It's actually in our mind, a very functional organization with a very clear direction. What they did is they worked with the community and with all of the stakeholders in the surrounding area to develop a master plan for the site. So typically a developer such as ourselves would find a large parcel of property like this. We would go and we would impose upon that site and the community, really, our vision for it. Well, what has happened here very correctly is that the JDA created a master plan for the site, understanding the needs of the community, taking input from all of the stakeholders, whether or not it's the commercial stakeholders, the citizens, the community at large from a recreational standpoint. How can this be developed in such a way so that not only the people that live on this site, but all of the people within the community of Arden Hills and the surrounding area, and really within Ramsey County, can take advantage of it and make it really aspirational. First thing that had to be done, though, is it had to be cleaned up. This was a Superfund site, one of the worst in the state, if not one of the worst in the country. It required a huge effort and a huge from not only environmental analysts and environmental engineers, but also the demolition of all of the existing buildings. Literally millions of yards of concrete were removed from the site, crushed and removed. All of the contamination from the site was removed, not only to industrial standards, but actually to a higher standard, which is called a residential standard. So at this point, the Minnesota State Pollution Agency has issued or is about to issue a complete clean bill of health for the site so that it has been cleaned to residential standards. One of the questions at another forum that we were at here recently was, how about the groundwater? Well, the good news is that the water for this site does not come from this site. As the rest of Arden Hills, many of you as residents know, you purchase your water from Roseville, which actually I believe purchases it from St. Paul. So none of the water from the site actually will ever end up being used on the site. So the two plans that are up here, the plan on the left is the regulating plan that was created by the JDA along with their team of consultants. And the various colors, and I won't go into the various colors and get into the details and the granular level of it, but basically it's a combination of housing, of retail, of commercial, and of recreational and natural resources. And the idea of this is to really create a natural resource corridor that the entire site surrounds and takes advantages of. So from our standpoint, where we start is, first of all, is making it a part of Arden Hills and part of the community, but we need to bring jobs to the site. And jobs create opportunities for better housing and really just a better environment within it. So the first thing is that we look at the commercial aspect of this and how many jobs can we create, how much tax base can be created. And the purple section up on the top is really, we call it the thumb, but that's the commercial campus. And the goal on that is to get as close to 1 million square feet of a commercial campus on that site. Going down along, so on the far left of both plans, the far left side of the site is Highway 10. That's the freeway. And that is going to be commercial. Again, high-paying, high-quality buildings, and we'll show you some of the illustrative elevations of the building. But the idea is to bring a lot of high-quality jobs to the site. Well, in 2016, it's very different than it was in 1990 or 2000 even. What you need to bring high-quality jobs is you need to bring vitality, which is recreational activities, high-quality housing associated with it, bike trails, walking trails, and kind of a complete environment. So the gray section that kind of goes through the site, which actually is over a 3-mile circumference around that site, is actually our natural resource corridor. That will, if you can use an image of Minneapolis, that's the equivalent of Lake of the Isles. So the idea is to make a very natural environment for not only the commercial workers, but obviously the residents that work here as well, that they can walk around and recreate around, ski beyond, cross-country skis. This plan will connect to literally hundreds of miles of bike trails and skiing trails and walking trails. So it's not just about this site, but it's about connecting it to the south side of Arden Hills as well as going further north and connecting onto the regional trail plans. The kind of on the right-hand side, which adjoins the existing National Guard property, that is where we're going to be putting the residential property or the residential single-family homes. And again, single-family homes, we're describing these, and we'll show you some pictures of them, are custom and semi-custom homes. These are not all real high-end homes. I mean, there's going to be homes that'll go for over $1 million, but there'll be homes in the $300,000 range too. So we're really looking for a diversity of product and a diversity of homeowners that would be part of this. So right now, what we're doing is we're working with the City of Arden Hills and the Planning Department as well as the JDA in melding our vision, which is kind of putting their plan into market realities, how much square footage of commercial, how many jobs, all of that into plans. So we're, over the next kind of 6 weeks to a month and a half, which is 6 weeks, 6 weeks, we should hopefully get to a compromised plan that meets the city and county's goals as well as the developers' realities of the marketplace. If we can go on to the next slide. On the right-hand side, this is our illustrious plan. This is where we're headed. And you can kind of see the natural resource corridor that goes through it. You can see the single-family homes on the right side. You can see the corporate campus up in the thumb area up on the far left-hand side, and then you can see the corporate uses down along the highway. What you also see, which we view as kind of the heart of the development, which everybody in this room that lives within 5 to 10 to 20 miles of this site, we hope that this is the draw. This we are trying to make the heart of this development, so that this is not just about building another, power center retail location on an intersection on a freeway. What we're actually trying to do is to create a downtown, and that downtown wants to have the vitality of small shops and restaurants, not chain restaurants, but kind of more organic restaurants that you can't go to at Roseville or in downtown Minneapolis. Something that is really a unique experience. In our development of that downtown, the first thing that we had to deal with was parking. Typically in a suburban location like Arden Hills or basically any suburban location, all of the parking is surface parking. So if you go to Maple Grove when they did Arbor Lakes or really for the most part Centennial Lakes down in Edina, you'll have retail and then you'll have surface parking that'll take up acres and acres. First of all, that is not really doesn't lend itself well for sustainability, because you end up with all of this impervious surface that just rainwater washes off of it and ends up in the creeks, and also doesn't add to tax value because it's just surface parking. So what we did is we started the concept of, let's see if we can't put all of the parking for the entire downtown on a plinth underneath the entire downtown. So the proposal is actually to create a plinth of parking, which you can only do if you have 427 acres of vacant property. When you're doing the mass grading, it's actually quite inexpensive to do it. And then build the community on top of that. And I'll mention one other thing is there's still a lot of water that is being pumped through this and treated through the site. It doesn't end up on the site. It goes off of the site. But part of our plan is to actually try to take that water supply and use it as geothermal heating for all of the downtown and potentially even the streets of that downtown, to make this not just about a small development in a suburban community, but really make this thing an attractive place for people to come from all over. If we can go to the next slide. So creating the sense of place, which is the infrastructure, such as I was talking about between the geothermal and really the parking, scale, mix, and intensity of use, that is the discussion that we're in with the city right now, is to make sure that we get the correct mix of scale and use so that we have enough density in this town and within the entire development to make it successful on its own, but also to make it to be an attractive driver for people to go to. I mean, we've heard many stories from people from Arden Hills driving all the way over to the West End and St. Louis Park to go to a restaurant. That shouldn't be necessary. There should be something closer to be able to do that. And then the experience that we want to create once you're here, once you're on the property, is we want you to be able to recreate and to enjoy it. It's not just about coming and eating, but it's about coming and staying and recreate. So the recreational facilities that we're planning and the parks that were programmed through the JDA and the city's planning process, we're trying to bring those to life. If we can go on to the next slide. So this kind of gives you an idea. If we start down in the lower left-hand corner, this was a development of another Superfund site. This is right outside of Atlanta. And they did very similar to what we're planning on doing as far as putting the parking, into the site initially before they built anything. This was a much more intense, you can see basically downtown Atlanta is right in the background, so it's a much more intense site. So this was a multi-level garage structure or parking structure that they created. Ours is a one-level, 800,000 square foot Over 2,000 cars would fit in that structure, though. But again, by doing it during the initial phase of this, when we're doing our mass grading of the site, the cost of doing that is not significantly more than putting in the surface parking, and you end up with, when you're taking your kids to a cinema or to a restaurant during the winter, you can go into an enclosed environment. You can go up, circulate up into the restaurant, and so forth. So there's a lot of benefits by doing what we're trying to do. If you look at the kind of the image on the right-hand side, that is kind of our goal of this downtown, is to create spaces that people want to be in. And I will guarantee you, there is not a space like that around in Minnesota. Our professionals, we have between 30 and 40 professionals that have been working on this now for 4 months constantly. So we're getting a lot of input from people. But we want to make this a place that everybody, not only that lives on the site or works on the site, is proud of, but we want to make it for really all of Arden Hills to be proud of. Kind of one of the keys, if you go up to that upper right-hand corner, one of the major arterials that bisects this site is what used to be called the Spine Road and is now called the Boulevard. It's a road that goes from the intersection on H, which is under construction right now, all the way down to 92, and it goes down. Is it 92 and 96? 96, sorry about that. As soon as I said it, I knew it was wrong. Down to 96. And that road needs to have a capacity of approximately 40,000 cars a day. It's a state road, and it's actually the speed on it has to be 40 miles an hour. So our solution on connecting kind of the commercial side of the site to our downtown side of the site was to create a bridge environment that doesn't feel like a bridge. And that's the image on the left-hand side. So you'll be able to circulate from the right-hand side of the downtown, where the residential, hotel, cinema, both apartments and condominiums and senior facility, as well as a civic function, all happens in the downtown area, can circulate easily across, in a very walkable environment, across this bridge. And we've got some great examples of this that have been done around the country where you don't even feel like you're going across a bridge. If we can go to the next image. So it starts with the housing. The backbone of any large development like this is to pick the correct housing developer. And our partner on this is Tradition Homes. And Todd Stutz, who runs Tradition Homes, is at this very senior level, is involved with this plan daily. So it's a combination of, as I mentioned before, custom and semi-custom homes, but it's a variety of housing types. So it doesn't look like cookie cutter national home builder kind of development. This will be a place that people will be able to, I think, hopefully look at not only right away, but for years as a very unique housing opportunity. If we can go to the next slide. The commercial one, and this falls into Tom Shaver and Kent Carlson's background, is really to develop high-end, quality commercial opportunities. And again, what drives those commercial opportunities is their ability to attract workers. What the millennials and people on both sides of the millennials want is they want to have that full package. They want to have the restaurants to go to at lunch. They want to have the recreational activities that they can go and view. They want to be able to bike to work, hopefully, and they want to have, to be proud of the environment that they walk into every day. That is the environment that we're trying to create on the commercial side of it. So if any of you are, in the commercial world and are looking for opportunities for new locations, Tom is in the back of the room, and I'm sure that he would love to talk to you after this. But we've already had great interest in opportunities. You've seen some of the developments, the commercial developments that have happened up along 610 and over toward Brooklyn Park and Maple Grove. What we're trying to do is to draw those high-quality employers into this site and really into Arden Hills. We can go out on the next site. So this gets into the downtown area, and again, it's broken into various pieces, but it's primarily 6 large, what we call super blocks. That is a kind of a combination of a walking experience and a driving experience. We did not make this just a mall. We still have to have the ability to have parking in front of each one of the shops, that would be there, or in front of the cinema. But the primary parking is going to be underneath that entire area, or almost the entire area. It's 800,000 feet underneath those 2 blocks. One of the things I want to point out is on the far right-hand side is kind of the what we would call a central park. And this is going to be an environment that everybody from Arden Hills and the surrounding areas will want to come to. The creation of an experience for not only kids, the kids' activities that can happen here, but an amphitheater, performances, 4th of July kind of events that could happen at this park. And the beauty of it is across that creek that'll go through there, and across that very low speed one-way traffic boulevard is you've got 2,000 parking stalls underneath. So a mother with a child in a stroller could very easily walk out at one level out of the parking right over into that park. And then there will be open space around it, and you could also access that 3-mile ring of walking around it. The images on the top, that's the images for the downtown area that we want to create. And we, again, vitality, experiences for weekend activities, whether or not it's farmer market or if it's car shows, all of those type of activities could start occurring on this site. And again, unless you look at this site holistically, it's 427 acres, the opportunity to do something like this just would not be available. So what we're trying to do is take advantage of the location of this site because of its accessibility to the freeways and the accessibility to really a huge population of people. Next picture, please. So again, the illustrious plan is on the right. The images on the left, the far left-hand corner, that's the end of Lake of the Isles. You can see the parkway that goes around. It's a one-way parkway system. You can see the biking and walking trails. That is the inspiration for our kind of the going around the natural resource corridor. And the engineering that has been involved in getting this plan to have open water like we have on it and to be able to get it to work is extreme. So our compliments to the engineers that have been working on this site. You'll see down in the lower, in the middle and on the bottom, kind of a bridge. There will be standing water. This is also a natural resource corridor, so you're going to have cattails, and it's not just about water, it's about infiltration as well, because this is stormwater management. So what we're going to be doing is purifying the water before it goes out and into the more larger regional system. Part of the contractor that did all of the remediation on the site was Bolander, along with Wink, which was the contractor that did the environmental assessments and so forth, environmental work on it. They harvested literally hundreds of thousands of board feet of native Douglas fir lumber off of this site that was part of these buildings. And what we're in discussions with Bolander on right now is to recover some of that timber that was used to actually add to the kind of these bridges and walking trails around the site. So some of the history of the site will actually be put back into use on this site. If we can go to the next site. So I don't know if any of you are familiar, but in Maple Grove there is a park called Central Park, and it is on the weekends and in the mornings it is busy with families and mothers and fathers, playing with their kids. They've got an ice track and so forth going around it. we're looking at really emulating what Central Park was, but putting it on steroids, trying to do kind of the new version of it, because one of the problems that they have at Central Park in Maple Grove is the parking lot, the surface parking lot they have is way too small. So they've got people walking, literally 3 blocks from the library to try to get over to it. Again, if you can imagine this entire park setting adjoining 2,000 parking stalls, it could be really great. Next slide. Just more images of the downtown along with kind of the civic use that we're contemplating. Next slide. So that's my presentation. So thank you all very much.
All right, thank you, Bob. So now we'll have questions.
Bob, could you give us an idea of the timing or the schedule at this point?
Well, good question. We were selected on May 3rd as the developer on it, and there was actually four groups that all competed in that competition. It took us kind of 60 days to get our team in place, so we've really been on it for approximately 4 months. We're in discussions right now with the city on finalizing the kind of the plan as it would be in the uses on the site. Hopefully within the next 6 weeks that will get done. Once that gets done, we still have to get the approval of the JDA, obviously, on theirs. And then there's a couple of agencies. The Met Council has to review it. Our hope is that we're in the ground in late spring, moving dirt and starting the mass grading on the site.
I happen to live on Highway 96. I'm concerned about the 40,000 cars coming off because now, even with the traffic as it is, we have sometimes to wait 5 minutes before we can get onto Highway 96 from our home. And with 40,000 more cars, that's going to be really interesting. So I was wondering about traffic control.
It's also a good question. The kind of the volume of the traffic and kind of the sizing of the roads and the intersections that have been done were done way before we were selected onto the site. So our understanding is, and I'm not sure where you are on 96, if you're at across the street. Literally across the street, it will be a intersection. I mean, so if I don't know if you're directly across the street, but there will be a semaphore on coming off of the boulevarded road onto 96. So that will be a controlled intersection. So whether or not you're either to the east or to the west of that site, it should actually be simpler because the traffic will be stopping at that point to allow people, if you're directly across, will allow people to get onto the road. Hopefully it's a significant improvement. Any other questions?
How many housing units are we talking about, and how many potential new residents?
Okay, the number of housing units that we're circling right now is approximately 1,500 housing units, and the number of jobs are approximately 3,000 jobs.
And those are split? How are those split, the 1,500 that you're talking about, Bob?
The 1,500 is approximately 500 single-family, approximately 300 senior housing, approximately 500 multifamily housing, multifamily being apartments. We're going to attempt to do 120 condominiums on the site as well, which is kind of a rarity. It would be in a concrete building, but it would be a rarity. But that's generally the mix of housing on the site.
Just a little bit of elaboration on the timing. I read somewhere where they're talking about this is a span over about 10 years.
Yes.
So I'm obviously primarily interested in the residential part. Could you elaborate on the timing of that? And also, really specific question on that housing. I read somewhere, I think it was the FIT assessment, that there's a demand for single-level family homes.
Yes.
And could you talk a little bit about that too?
Yep. So The worst thing that a developer can get tied down to is an exact schedule, because there's market realities out there. And the timeline that we have put out is, and I think the JDA put out as well, is it's a 10 to 15 year program, because the housing is actually the easy part to understand the market for. The market right now is very strong for the single-family houses. We can build the single-family houses and the multifamily in a relatively short period. And that should be a lot less than the 10 years. I'm not going to put a number out there, but it should be less than 10 years. The commercial is commercial is a little bit like fishing for a whale. You put your line in, you're not sure when you're going to get the hit, but when you get the hit, then you got to bring it in. There's a need in the community as the baby boomers, which I am one of, start looking for single-level housing. That will be part of the first phase, and also the condominiums is the same thing. My wife and I live in a condo downtown. We moved from the west side of town in a house that was, outdated for our needs. And we're now in a condominium, so that's the other need for that. So they're single family, both in the multi unit buildings for single level living, as well as in the residential, where the single family homes will have a single level living as well, master on the first level and all of that.
I know this is not within your purview, but as I've heard about this, I wonder how feasible this is, quite frankly. I don't know if you happened to read a very interesting article in the middle of August at the Star Tribune, which talked about the westward movement of jobs from, including Arden Hills, into areas that have, particularly where either a mass transit is either there or where it's being planned. And also talked about the growth in downtown St. Paul due to the Green Line. And one of the concerns to me about this is, where is the mass transit? Because I don't think a project like this is feasible unless there's some sort of and pretty dense mass transit hookup. The millennials want to travel. I mean, they'll certainly go to their thing, but they also want to go to other places too. This doesn't have it. So I have real concerns about this. I know you folks aren't involved. You have a very specific thing. But I wonder how feasible this is unless something is done about the whole mass transit issue here.
Well, actually, if I could answer that, it's a good question. And in reality, we are very interested in that question. And that is part of our discussions already. We've been in discussions with the leadership at the MTC, Metro Transit, on a bus line. There's no plan to bring the light rail anywhere close to this site, but there is an opportunity, we believe, to bring both express as well as potentially local bus opportunities to this site. And part of the design of that bridge system and that underground parking system has that in mind. So more to come on it. You're correct. We have to be thinking about mass transit. But we also have to be thinking about bringing those jobs close to the housing so that we get people off of the freeway in where they can hopefully bike to work as opposed to just taking their car to work. It's an important, very important subject, definitely in our purview and in our mind.
Hi, just speaking to that, what the plan is, we've talked to Metropolitan Transit before and succeeded in getting a dotted line on a map, but it's very important, which would extend the bus rapid transit that currently ends at Rosedale, the one that just opened this year. As development happens out here, there's a potential to expand that up through Arden Hills and Shoreview, and one of the things we did was sit down and talk to them about what makes sense for what would be along that route, which way it would go. And the beauty of the bus rapid transit is it can be expanded incrementally. And unlike the light rail, you don't have to do the whole project at once. And it would go up through the development here and terminate at the County Road H end, where there'd be a opportunity for people from Mounds View and Blaine and the surrounding area to take advantage of it. And that line hooks up with both the green line and the blue line. And so it would tremendously expand our transit opportunities in our entire area, not just for this development.
Very good point. And if I can kind of pull back the veil and tell you where we're trying to go with this, is that lower level of parking. We're trying to make that part of the park and ride system, so that somebody could actually, within the local vicinity, could come park their car there, get on the bus underneath that bridge structure, and to be able to go either directly to one of the downtowns or commute into all the way down to Rosedale. That's kind of the big thought that we're trying to make happen on this, because if we can take advantage of both parking for our facility as well as kind of the region, it really helps. Good, thanks.
All right, thank you, Bob. The next presentation is, or was going to be, by Land O'Lakes. Land O'Lakes is, the presenter is not able to be here today because of a death in the family. I'm sure that I can't do justice to all of the things that she would have said about Land O'Lakes, but we had a tremendously important development there, and I just want to cover it briefly. Certainly don't want to leave it out of the state of the city. Land O'Lakes has been in Arden Hills since 1981. They are our second largest employer. The campus currently operates under a planned unit development. The site currently contains 2 buildings, the corporate headquarters building and a research and development facility. On July 25th, they requested approval to expand their campus and consolidate 1,200 employees in Arden Hills and 900 employees in Shoreview into one facility. They will be adding, well, let me say this, that the proposal includes a 4-story office building and an estimate of 2,100 employees after the construction in 2018. The building that they're adding is 145,000 square feet, and they expect to grow from 2,100 employees to 2,400 employees over the future. The City of Arden Hills joined with Ramsey County, the Mountain View School District, to abate taxes on the new building as an incentive for them to stay here in our city. Also, the state participated through the Department of Deed, the State Department of Deed. So we're pleased that they're staying here. 2,400 employees in a community of just under 10,000 people is a substantial percentage of our employment base, and we're very, very pleased that they are staying here. Land O'Lakes, as we went through the proposal, you learn a few things about companies. They are a co-op. They are owned by approximately 6,000 major farms across the United States. And in terms of their economic sales, on the Fortune 500 list, they would come in as approximately number 200. And that's not something that's commonly known about Land O'Lakes. Being a Fortune 200 company is a big deal. So we're glad that they're going to stay here, and they've already started construction in the front of their facility, closest to 694. They're putting in a parking lot currently, and that's why it's blocked off and you can't get in. They need that space for employee parking so that they can build the new building in front of the existing building. So we're looking forward to that. They'll do. They should finish off the parking lot in the front by this year, and maybe even potentially start some of the initial phases of the building in the front. So that's a little bit about Land O'Lakes. The next presenter is the North Metro manager for the Minnesota Department of Transportation, Sheila Kauppi. Sheila?
As the mayor mentioned, I am Sheila Kauppi. I work for the Minnesota Department of Transportation, and I thank you for the invite. I like that I'm a standing agenda item every year for this event. It gives me an opportunity to share all of the excitement that we have going on the state highway system, and also share a bit of the work that we're doing in partnership with our communities as well. All right. So I first came to this meeting was in 2014, and I remember thinking the number of projects that we kind of had going on and that were coming up, particularly in 2016, 2015, 2016, and 2017, were really going to be something. We knew there were going to be a number of impacts to those driving on the system, but also knew that kind of a lot of the infrastructure was coming to a point where it needed to be replaced. So with in mind that we had some of the TCAP, or Rice Creek Commons now as it's called, knew that that would be coming at some point, along with development that we knew was coming in the North Metro. It was important to get a lot of that work done early. So we're kind of all, I feel like, singing a harmony and getting some of that work done early so that we can support the development as it comes, along with existing people that live along the corridor as well. We don't want to forget about those as well. So this is a map. It's kind of a small scale, but it does show a number of the projects that we had just going on in Ramsey County in 2016. It also shows the fact that if you were driving from one point to the other end of Ramsey County, you definitely ran into some sort of construction impacts. And that's only the state highway system. Advance, please. And this slide is an attempt to show as well that in 2013 to 2015, we'd spent over $70 million just of state dollars on projects under construction. And that, on average, we spend about $550 million a year, again, state funds. Again, we have influxes of money that might come in for special bridge funding sources or earmarks or something of that nature. And this also doesn't include any of the county dollars that they might be bringing in from development or money that they're seeking as well from federal government or such solicitation. So I attempt to show this as well to say, in this year alone, we spent $70 million near Ramsey County and also in Arden Hills, so in the surrounding area as well for state dollars. So we thought it was bad in 2013 to 2015, but this last year, it was also really bad in the respect of the impacts. But what that also means is we're going to be done very, very soon, which is great. So next slide. Yeah. This project here, the 694 Corridors of Commerce, was exactly what I mentioned. Program projects and that $550 million are things that we're kind of anticipating. The Corridors of Commerce program was actually additional funding that came to us, and we needed to spend it on a very tight time frame, which meant the time frame for development of that project, the outreach, all of those elements was on a very accelerated schedule. We had an early high estimate around over $40 million that we were going to spend to add this general purpose lane on 694. The project actually came in less, which is great. We had an opportunity to do some different type of outreach on that project. Again, adding a lane to the highway is really not all that exciting per se, but in the respect that we had some opportunities to share some videos to help people better understand how to drive through the construction, and I think those were very successful for us this year. We had a dedicated website. We had a number of people tracking and following on that as well. So this year we added a general purpose lane on westbound. Again, there's kind of a chute essentially separated when you're traveling westbound. There's a lane that will allow you to go all the way through, and then there's a lane for local access. Over the winter season, we'll be back up and open to having 2 lanes in each direction, more traditional what it looks like in a normal roadway. But there will be an additional lane that will be added, and then next summer we'll kind of bring it back to what it looked like this summer, and then we'll add the additional lane on eastbound. So 1 more year of construction, yay, and then it'll be done. Advance, please. Thank you. This was a project that we finished up this year, County Road E2, again, partnership with the communities, and I think it is pretty nice. There's some dedicated pedestrian facility out there. Some of the work is still going on the county side or the city side, but again, that project is complete, and I think it looks pretty good. There's definitely an improvement there. So this is the county-led project, so again, supporting the Rice Creek Commons. This was a solicitation that we got some additional funding from the legislature through, so thanks a number of the representatives for helping us on that as well. But Ramsey County is the lead for that, and that project is still ongoing. They'll see some more construction next summer as well, but it was replacing the County Road H Bridge. And it is also one of the things to note here, next summer the ramp from Highway 10 to 35W will have some impacts because there's what we call a braided ramp that will be from 35W to H, which is a non-existing move today, will be added. And that's to help facilitate some of the development, again, at the Rice Creek Commons. So there will be some impacts in that area. The county's website's got some detailed information about when to anticipate some of those impacts. But again, it'll be nice when that project's done too. That's my route home. So it'll be good to have that that work done as well. This again was just a needed infrastructure project that we had on 35W, which had started out to be a bit more work than what we did actually this summer. And the intent was actually to kind of push it along till, again, do the needed repairs quickly. We did most of the work overnight. But again, knowing that in the future we're going to have to do kind of a major repair on 35W, which those that have been kind of plugged into some of the long-range planning and some of the project development, we're talking about adding a min-pass lane on 35W. And again, that's in the 2019-2020 time frame. And knowing that we couldn't wait that long to do something on 35W, there was a number of potholes and just things that were needed. But again, we did this project this summer, and minimal in the respect of impacts to the drivers, but needed because we needed to fix some of the road. This was a project, again, not necessarily in Arden Hills, but those that drove 36 noticed there was some impacts. Again, we kind of shifted the roadway. That bridge is going to be really nice when it's done, which it is now. And Lexington Avenue had been, under 36 had been closed for most of the summer. So that'll be opening up soon here as well. This was kind of just a needed infrastructure project. We're painting some bridges on 694, but definitely had some impacts probably from Arden Hills residents saying, how come I can't get across on 694? But again, painting the bridges keeps those steel bridges so that they last a bit longer for us, and essentially like why you'd paint your house. 280, again, another paving project that we had going on, but again, also supporting the long term of doing some improvements on 35W, and also, again, needed improvements on 280. The pavement was in pretty poor condition. 2017, I love this map, only in the respect that I think you'll actually be able to drive around Ramsey County in 2017 pretty easy next year. So that's great news. We do have some, and I think we have inserts for each of those. Yes, please. Thank you. 694, again, I mentioned a little bit about that we'll be adding the eastbound lanes next summer. So there'll be, again, impacts next summer, but I think that there'll be an end in sight. So Snelling Avenue, we have some impacts, again, north of Pierce Butler at up to 36. We know we're kind of minimizing impacts around the State Fair and also the Back to the 50s car show and other major events that are going on down there as well. 694, this project I think is important to note as well, was a separate project that had been identified. We're actually proposing to roll this into the 694 project so that motorists are not seeing another impact. But again, it's an additional lane for those motorists that are heading eastbound, particularly in the morning. You'll see backups in the left lane on 10 to get to 694. This will actually add an additional lane as you enter onto 694. So people that are eastbound on 10 right now get off at Snelling. We'll actually have some competition for that right lane now because some of the people will be on 694. So definitely a benefit for those motorists on 694 as well. I mentioned a little bit about the min-pass work that we're doing right now on 35W. It is a project that costs, the estimate is around $208 million. It does run from, would be adding a min-pass lane from 36 all the way up to Lexington, the north end up there in Lino Lakes, almost Lino Lakes. So there's lots of things that will be part of that, noise walls, drainage infrastructure. Essentially, the whole road gets a new surface, new concrete surface, and it'll be kind of renewed. So it'll look good. It fits with all the bridges that we've redone in recent years, but it's also, early estimates are about a 4-year construction season. So that'll be definitely impactful on 35W and for those around in the area. But again, I think we're happy to know 35E will be done, 694 will be done, 36. So there'll be a lot of roads that will not be under construction when this project. And again, as I mentioned, the proposal is $208 million, which I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to pay for that. So right now, we have a budget shortfall for that project and trying to figure out if additional funding comes from the legislature, or do we need to move some other projects? Because again, it's a needed improvement, and it supports the infrastructure we're talking about at Rice Creek Commons. It goes to the gentleman's comment about mass transit and getting transit opportunities out here, because they will also use that along with people that carpool. So again, that'll help relieve the congestion also on 35W with that added lane on 35W. Again, some contact information. My name is on the bottom. Happy to answer any questions. I'm always around. We're work with the city of Arden Hills, and I'm dedicated to projects going on in Ramsey County. So the way we're kind of set up at MnDOT, I'm kind of the first point of contact. Otherwise, we have Kent in the back there as well, and he's our communications. So a lot of people get emails from Kent Bernard as well, and he's here too. So.
Just a comment about MinPass. I think on 35E, northbound, southbound, it's really great. The only issue that I've seen with it is that since you're in the far left-hand lane going south, far left-hand lane going north,
yes.
And then if you want to exit and go westbound on 94, for example, take the University Avenue exit, off of 35E, you've got to cross over all the congested traffic that is backed up because they're not in the MinPass lane. Yeah. And I know it's, kind of a engineering logistics thing,
sure.
But it would be nice if you're in a MinPass lane, you've got better access to the exits, either
sure.
southbound and or northbound.
Yeah, that's a reasonable comment. Again, if we were to put that MinPass lane on the right side, then we'd have all the exits, and they would be impacting our road as well. So we typically try to end, again, for the university in the 35E Commons area with 94, it does end a bit north of there, so it does provide opportunity for people to get over. But again, I know what you're speaking of, it is congested, and you're kind of weaving your way over. Yeah, that's part of the design of it, and unfortunately, I don't know that we can solve that in the respect. I always think if you could have that beacon to be able to kind of trump and be able to move to the right, but yeah, the other people in the general purpose lanes aren't super excited about that option. But again, I think that's a reasonable comment. We'll bring that back again where there's high volume movements that will be part of 35W. We'll take that into consideration if there's enough time to move over as well. So I thank you for that comment.
Just a quick comment on, it seems like a lot of times the alternative routes are under construction the same time that the main routes are under construction. I just would ask that, like this year, 694, between Maplewood and, let's say, Arden Hills, if I'm coming back and something, 35E is under construction, so you can't take 96. 96 is out because that bridge is out. Lexington is out. I'm just wondering how sometimes the thought process goes down there, because a lot of times our alternative routes are also under construction at the same time. So just please understand that when you put 3 separate projects in place, it makes it difficult for some commuters to get through. That's all. It's just a comment. It's not anything serious. Rice Street Bridge. Is that what's the schedule on that, or how is that? I heard it didn't get funded. I don't know where we're at with that, so I would like to get some clarification on Rice Street Bridge. Thank
you. Commissioner Blake Huffman is here as well. He might be best to speak to that.
Good morning, everyone. So the Rice Street Bridge over 694 is woefully in need of repair. As an image of our dysfunctional state government, it's been passed by the House and the Senate, which is Republican and Democrat, the last 2 years, not signed into law. It's the county. It remains the county one's number one priority and from a legislative standpoint is to get that. We know there's lots of development that'll happen when that occurs. So it's our number one priority at the county, and we're just trying to get the state to help us there.
One thing to note, we knew that was a project that would be coming. Again, we've, over the years, worked with the county and cities and the communities to kind of preserve some of the right-of-way in the area, knowing that that bridge would be coming as a replacement. At the same time, we had some repairs that were maybe more robust, shall I say, on Rice Street Bridge over 694, and we held some of those repairs back as well and did what was absolutely necessary, knowing that we were going to have an investment as state agency, county, city, as we move forward, and making sure that we weren't investing something that we were going to have to be removing in a few years. So we're supportive of the county's work to try to find some additional funding there, and we'll be happy to partner with them as well as we move forward.
Hi, my name is Julie, and I want to thank Brenda for bringing up that intersection. My husband and I own 2 businesses on Lexington Avenue on the intersection of 694, so it's been very, very challenging multiple years. The challenge that I'm having as a business owner is the lack of communication between the city, MnDOT, and Ramsey County. When I call Ramsey County and ask a question on time frame, they say to talk to the city. I talk to the city, they say to talk to the county. I talk to the county, they say to talk to MnDOT. And I never really get any answers. And then one person will tell me that ramp's going to be closed for 2 weeks. And then on week 3, I call and they say, oh, now it's 6 weeks because we finished our part, but now the county has 4 more weeks. So it's been very challenging to try to get our customers to us. And when it keeps changing, and then as that gentleman just brought up, I give them alternative routes to get to our business, and then those are closed. And then they said, well, Lexington and Rice are not going to be closed at the same time, and then they closed Rice. And so it just feels very challenging with the lack of communication. I'm always looking at the website. Oh, that hasn't been updated. Oh, yep, it's been updated. Oh, but now the county and now the city. And it's just very frustrating as a business owner trying to work through this when I understand we have to have construction projects, but it just feels like there's not that acknowledgement to the hit that it takes to small businesses when all of this happens.
Yeah, that's it. I thank you for that comment, and I apologize. I know that there's a lot going on, and with the multi-agencies and the number of construction contractors, it's not an excuse. But it is a challenge for them to coordinate the work. And the minute we do concrete paving, which is always the challenge too, I love concrete paving because it lasts for so long, but it also has this darn curing time that we can't put vehicles on it, which is always also a challenge, depending on what the weather is. And again, the staging of it is definitely a challenge as well. So I'd be happy to talk with you afterwards as well, if you'd be willing to stay around. Again, I apologize for the impacts that we do as state agencies and city and county, because we're not intentional at the respect of doing it, and I know you recognize that, but we can do better. I agree. We can all do better. So.
I want to thank each of the presenters for being here today and presenting. I want to thank all of you for coming. I hope you found this meeting interesting and informative. A number of us are staying around after the meeting, so feel free to stop by and ask additional questions. So once again, thank you for coming today.